Hello. We are just going to start with 10 minutes of just going through things. This is meant to be listened to. It can be watched as well, but it is meant to be listened to. So I'm going to read everything and all of that. So if I talk slow, feel free to speed it up. We are just going to start. I'm going to start a 10-minute timer, and then when the timer's done, that'll be it. So, all right. According to a team of neurochemists from the University of Zurich or whatever, ease of decision-making may be linked to communication between two brain regions, the prefrontal cortex and the pre-something cortex. Individuals tend to be more decisive if the information flow between the regions is intensified, whereas they make choices more slowly when the information flow is blank. I'm thinking, before I pick my answers, I'm thinking like limited. So I'm going to look at my answers. We have reduced, evaluated, determined, and acquired. I'm going to go with reduced, and reduced is the right answer. Next question. Also, we are on practice test 5. This is practice test 5. Ecologist Ezekiel something and his colleagues found that the inhabitants of the Mexica Empire used natural landmarks to track time with a high degree of blank. I already think it's success, but by observing the sun's position in relation to variation points on the mountains surrounding the basin of Mexico, the Mexica were able to precisely identify the dates when significant events such as solstices occurred. We have precariousness, exactitude, resilience, and inconspicuousness. Well, I think exactitude, it's pretty exact, and they can pinpoint things down very much. So B would be the correct answer there. In editor Leela Isaac's introduction to her anthology, The Future is Female, more classic science fiction stories by women, she identifies an increasing sense of blank, feminist mode of writing in the 1970s. In contrast to many women author science fiction stories of the... Let me read that again. In editor Lisa something, I can't pronounce her last name, introduction to her anthology, The Future is Female, More Classic Science Fiction Stories by Women, she identifies an increasing sense of blank feminist mode of writing in the 1970s. In contrast to many other women-authored science fiction stories of the 1920s to 1960s, whose politics were less deliberately signaled. So that was a mouthful to read. I apologize for that, but we're just going straight through. We're not stopping. The vibe that I'm getting here is that things were a little more under the table in a lot of other women's writing, but this girl, she was very adamant on this is what it is. So we have our option, a sense of a prudently feminist mode, a sense of an overly feminist mode, a sense of a quarterly feminist mode of writing, and a sense of an inadvertently feminist mode of writing. So, one thing that I'm getting here is that based on what we're looking at, is that this one's actually hard. So the other ones were very deliberate. They weren't deliberately signaled. So cordially is I think it's formal based on what I remember. I don't necessarily remember, but I don't think it's that. Prudently is kind of rude, I believe. And I don't think it's not saying it's rude, it's just saying that it's there. And inadvertently is I don't really remember. But I could search it up, but that would take a lot of time. I know that an overly feminist mode of writing, it's that I feel like that lines up for me. I mean, That is the answer. That is the answer. But you have to look and see where to connect the dots, why that is. I see it as in this one mode of writing is overly feminist, and then compared to the other people that were just kind of like sneaking feminist themes into their novels. This was, the future's female, man. Like, we gotta lock in. I gotta stop saying lock in. Next question. K.D. Lecca and her colleagues found that the sun's corona provides an advanced indication of solar flares, intense eruptions of electromagnetic radiation that emanate from active regions in the sun's photosphere and can interfere with telecommunications on Earth. Preceding a flare, the corona temporarily exhibits increased brightness above the region where the flare is blank. I would say I would finish this sentence where the flare is about to be, where it's about to happen. And one of our options is impending. There's perpetual innocuous. I don't even know what that means. An ascendant. I don't even know, but we know that it's impending. Like, it's saying, like, we know what's going to happen before it happens. So, next question. The following text is adapted from Gene Weber's 1912 novel, Daddy Longlegs. The narrator is a young college student writing letters detailing her weekly experiences. The college is organizing the freshman basketball team, and there's just a chance that I shall make it. I'm little, of course, but terribly quick and wordy and tough. While the others are hopping about in the air, I can dodge under their feet and grab the ball. Which choice best states the main purpose of the text? Well, the first option is to compare basketball with other sports. And based on the text, it really didn't mention anything else. It just talked about basketball. So I'm going to cross off A. To provide details about how to play basketball. Again, this really has nothing to do with that. This is about the narrator talking about college. The next option is to state how players will be chosen for the basketball team. And this really isn't from the coach's perspective. This isn't like, this is how they do it. This is just, it's about her. And the final option is to explain why the narrator thinks she might make the team. And reading over that, I mean, that's kind of it. You can very easily just go and cross out the first three and move on to the next one. So D is the answer. Moving on. This is a longer one. Researchers have hypothesized that woolly mammoths were hunted to extinction in North America by humans using spears with grooved tips known as Clovis points. One anthropologist set out to test this hypothesis. Using a mechanical spear thrower, he launched the spears with Clovis points into mounds of clay, substitutes for the animals' large bodies. The projectiles generally penetrated only a few inches into the clay, an amount insufficient to have harmed most woolly mammoths. This led the anthropologists to conclude that hunters using spears with Clovis points likely weren't the principal drivers of the extinction. I can already see here there's a hypothesis, there's an experiment, and then there's a conclusion. So just understanding how that text is, now we can see what the main purpose is. To argue, the first option is to argue for the significance of new findings amid an ongoing debate among researchers. That could be it. I don't know. I don't necessarily think that's what it is, but we'll keep going. To discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the methods used in the experiment. Well, I know that that's not it because it just said this is the experiment. It doesn't necessarily talk about what was right and what was wrong. To summarize two compelling hypotheses and a major finding associated with each one, this only talks about the Clovis point hypothesis. And to describe an experiment whose results cast doubt on an established hypothesis. Well, looking at the text, we have a hypothesis about the Clovis point, a anthropologist going to test that, the experiment, and the result, which casts doubt on that said hypothesis. So I would go with D. A really just It's not talking about new finding, it's proving old theories. So that is that. And I have set a 10-minute timer, and the 10-minute timer is up. We got through 6 questions, but I hope that this helps, and I hope that you can digest some of this while you're busy commuting or getting ready for bed or any time in between classes or stuff, but I hope this can help you. Please give me your feedback and have a great day. Bye.